This question is, I would love for you to address using the Charlotte Mason method with children who have special needs. Special needs can vary widely. I have a daughter with autism, sensory processing disorders, and pervasive developmental delays. She's 18 now, but we are still homeschooling with Charlotte Mason methods because she enjoys it. She wants to keep going. You can use SCM methods with special needs children. Living books, narration, observation, guided discovery, habits, giving a wide variety, using short lessons. The methods still work, but you may need to tweak them to fit your child best. What kind of tweaking do you mean? I often get asked. Each child is unique, and what works for one child might not be the best fit for another. But let me give you 5 areas to think about, and I'll include some examples of how I've tweaked things in those areas for my child. Hopefully the examples will help you get your creative juices flowing and give you some ideas for possible tweaks for your child. The first area to think about is environment. Consider the area in which you are doing schoolwork. This area isn't so much about the methods themselves, but it is connected because the environment in which you do your schoolwork can greatly affect how well the methods work. Children with sensory processing issues especially can be distracted by levels of light, noise, smells, touch, like if their clothes feel scratchy or if a sibling is getting too close for comfort. And I don't mean mildly distracted. Their sensory issues can multiply that light or that noise or that movement to such a strong intensity that the poor child can't focus on anything else. The hum of the dryer might seem distant and relatively quiet to you, but to a child with a sensory disorder, it could be excruciatingly loud, like sitting beside a freight train. So take a good look around the space where you are expecting her to learn and try to see it from her perspective. In fact, do more than look. Use all your senses in that space and make adjustments as needed. Along those lines, too, think about what delivery method you are using to give her a living book or other material like math or pictures. Are you using an electronic screen, a white paper page, an audio voice? Some children with sensitive eyesight may do better if you tweak what they are looking at, while those with hyperhearing might do better with an adjustment in what they are hearing. With my neurologically typical children, we did schoolwork all over the house, and often in common rooms. They would sit at the dining room table to do copywork or math, and one could focus on her work even as I helped another one. But that didn't work for my autistic child. For her, I need to have a separate room where we can go to do schoolwork alone. And she can concentrate even better if I close the door. The goal here is to remove or at least reduce physical issues that make it even more difficult for her to learn. It's a good place to start because it can affect everything you try to do in that space. Now, let's get into the methods themselves. The second area to think about is how much framing the child might need. Framing has to do with narrowing the focus to remove extra information. Let me show you what I mean. It's like the difference between telling the child to find Waldo on this 2-page spread versus telling the child to find Waldo somewhere in here. How tightly you need to frame depends on the child. I use framing to narrow the focus of nature study and habits. When we began to do nature study, we walked around our house, and I asked my daughter to tell me what she heard. I recorded what she told me in our nature notebook. We practiced with hearing on our weekly nature walk for a few weeks, and then I widened the frame to also include what she saw. Another way to do framing in nature study would be to start with a specific nature object that you go visit each week. Then gradually widen the frame to include another object and then another. We do framing naturally with habit training. We start with one, and once we get that one up and running, we add another one. With special needs children, we may need to look at an even narrower framework, though. Most children can take one habit and see how it applies to various situations. For example, orderliness. Everything in its place could be applied to keeping clothes neat in dresser drawers, hanging up coats in the closet, putting away craft supplies, picking up toys off the floor, etc. And most children can focus on those several applications of cleanliness all together and have no trouble. But some of our special needs kids will need to have a narrower frame. You may just need to focus on one application. And then once they've got that one, widen the frame to another, and so on. A third area to think about is how quickly you move on. Math is not my daughter's strong suit, so I linger over one number longer than I would with a typical child. We use Charlotte Mason methods with hands-on manipulatives and interesting scenarios and oral work with very little writing. I just do more of the little scenarios and realize that she will need to use the manipulatives longer before she's comfortable enough to do those sums without them. So I don't plan out when we will move on to the next number. I wait until she's ready. When she's confident with this one, we'll move to the next, however long that takes. It has required a shift in my thinking. Instead of dwelling on where should we be and when are we going to get there, I've learned to focus on what's next. That's all. Just the next step when she's ready to take it. Another method in which I've tweaked how quickly we move on is in narration. My daughter has a hard time putting her thoughts into words and speaking them, so narrations are difficult for her. But one day I discovered a tweak that worked well. We were reading through Black Beauty, and I was having her draw a picture of what happened today in the story. Then I usually asked her to tell me about her picture. I could usually get one sentence. But on this particular day, I decided to write down what she told me. So she gave me a sentence. I smiled and nodded, and then turned away to write it on the page, opposite of her picture. Then I looked back and paused, and she gave me another sentence. See, if I sat there and looked and nodded the whole time, she felt pressure and she would shut down. But somehow that little break in my gaze as I looked away to write what she said removed the pressure, and she was able to form another sentence. So I learned not to move too quickly through a narration, to allow her plenty of time to form her thoughts into words and get them out. The fourth area to consider is how much material you present at a time. For example, if we're reading a literature book just for fun, I may go ahead and read a whole chapter. But if it is a history book or a science book, and especially if I'm requiring a narration from my daughter, I will read only a short passage. I do the same for copy work or transcription or dictation. My daughter has very weak muscle tone, which makes handwriting very difficult. So I usually give her only a 5 or 6 word phrase to write in a lesson. Then the next time we do transcription, we'll review the phrase she already wrote and look at the next one. Small, constant touches add up. But if I dump too much material on her at one time, I know that she will feel overloaded and shut down. So I try to give her enough to offer a new idea and then give her time to process that idea. So our lessons are quite short, but she gets a wide variety of ideas in those short touches. The last area that I'll mention today is substitutions. You can tweak by substituting a different living book that covers the same topic. For example, though my daughter is 18 now, I'm using books on a 1st through 3rd grade level for most subjects. And some of those are quite challenging for her. And even within that same reading level, sometimes I will substitute a different book because the one we started just wasn't working well. Another place you can substitute is in the math scenarios. I like to change the names to be people in my daughter's life. If you have a child with autism, you know that they very often have enthusiasms that become a concentrated focus for a season. For example, my daughter loves certain dogs and loves to recite what color their collars are. So her face lights up when I work those details into her math lessons. So there are 5 areas to consider tweaking as you use Charlotte Mason methods with your special needs child. You can still use living books. You can tweak by substituting a different reading level and adjusting how much you read at a time. You can still use narration. Tweak it by not moving too quickly and giving your child plenty of time to communicate her thoughts. You can still use observation, like in nature study or picture study. You just may need to frame how much to observe at a time. You can still use guided discovery, as in math. Be ready to linger longer over some concepts until the child is comfortable and ready to move ahead. And you can still do habit training. Just be ready to frame specific applications of each habit and spend as much time as needed to get each one firmly in place. Short lessons will be a key to reduce frustration, and wide variety will be a key to keep things enjoyable. I fell into the trap once of focusing only on the weak academic areas that needed the most work. So we spent a term just doing the 3 R's every day: reading, writing, and arithmetic. We both began to dread schoolwork. It was tedious, it was boring, it was dry, and most importantly, it wasn't expanding my daughter's horizons. It is so important to give our children, and especially our special needs children, a wide variety of subjects. It doesn't take much to read a poem once a week, or listen to music, or draw, or look together at a beautiful picture. These subjects are what feed our children's minds and hearts in ways that we can't see. They are some of the ways that we demonstrate our respect for that child as a whole person. So please don't neglect them. I know some special needs children crave routine, but you can still give your child a wide variety of subjects and cater to her desire to know what to expect. I just keep a simple chart on the door of the room where we do our schoolwork. It lists which subjects we're going to do each day of the week. We have variety as you look across the week, but my daughter has the comfort of knowing what to expect each day. We could talk so much on this topic, but for now, let me wrap things up by encouraging you in one more thing, and that is keep in mind the goal of education. Charlotte Mason said that we learn just to know? No. We learn to grow. The goal of education is growth as a person. So rather than focusing on what grade level is my child, how far is she behind, try to focus on, is she growing as a person? Look for growth in all areas of life, not just academics. And when you see growth, whether it's in her reading level or her ability to brush her teeth or her being able to communicate what she needs, celebrate that. With Charlotte Mason's wonderful methods and your loving observation and tweaks, I think you'll see plenty of opportunities to celebrate growth.